Hello, this is James St. James, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about how to heal. Join me on my journey as I integrate ancient and modern medicines to reverse engineer intuitive healing so that you can re-engineer your body and mind to live vibrantly once again. In order to understand how we heal, we first must understand how the body works. And to get a better understanding of that, we have another video in this series for which the link is in the description below. Now to move on, first we must answer the question, what is healing? When I say healing, a lot of people ask me, what kind of healing do you do? Is it like a massage or is it some kind of energy work? And I think to clarify that, let me first define what I mean by healing. As I use the word healing in this video series, the way I define it is based on the damage in your body. And to fix that damage is the essence of healing. It's not necessarily a technique or a modality or a practice as what's taught in school, but rather it's just the strategy behind fixing damage that's in the body and a way of identifying it, targeting it, and then also to resolve it using any and every tool that you have available. In order to understand how to heal, first let's ask the question, why is it that we're not already healing? Well, let's look at the first thing. Your body is composed of 10 trillion or more cells that are always doing some kind of physiological function and always trying to repair itself. So if the body is always repairing itself, then it would make sense that we would be able to fix the damaged parts of our body. But the issue is, in reality, is that the diseases that we had last year may be the diseases that we have this year, even though our body has replaced all the tissues, all the cells, so that we've literally created the same brokenness and the same diseases that we had a while ago, and we've recreated that, and now we still are living with it. Despite the advances in the medical industry and technology in general, our society has continued to increase statistically in the levels of illness, of all kinds of illness, and in terms of mental illness as well. With this kind of rate of increase, it just shows that our current solutions and the systems that we're using are not exactly effective in creating a way for us to preventatively take care of ourselves and optimize our functionality as human beings. Looking at the people that I know in my life and seeing their health issues and how they've evolved through time, it made me question, because what I studied in school was that the body and the cellular process is the cells are always repairing themselves and always proliferating or creating new cells. In any given tissue, it would take only a few days to a number of months for the tissue to completely regenerate or all the cells to be replaced. With that being said, it would only make sense that our body, a perfect biological construction, would want to create an ideal form of itself if it's continually recreating itself. So the body you have right now and every part of you is merely just an accumulation of all the food that you've eaten over the previous year. In about 1 year, the body's able to fully replace itself. Now, the main problem with that is the health issues that you were dealing with over a year ago and the stresses that you were dealing with over a year ago and the lack of, say, mental functions that you had over a year ago are still with you today, even though your body has replaced every single tissue and every single cell, or almost every single one. Now, why does that happen? Why is it that we keep rebuilding brokenness? Why is it that the most advanced physiological system in the known universe is continually being broken, even though we may have switched our diet, we may have taken on these health practices, and yet still the disease and the burden, still those troubles persist with us day after day, year after year. Answering this question is a lot about what led me down my path to heal a number of health issues that I was dealing with, and led me to travel across the world, meeting many scientists and doctors, and even a particular healer that would help me develop an understanding of how my body works so that I can understand exactly how I could heal myself. And now I'm not like in perfect health or anything like that, but I have come a long way. So if you were able to see where I was before, when I was, maybe 21 years old, and every day going through panic attacks, seizures, having hallucinations, and barely even able to hold a conversation, I went from that and then struggled through that for many years until eventually, I started finding things out for myself, and I decided to take responsibility for all the negative aspects of my health that I had accidentally created. And through doing that, I found a lot of what works and what stages to apply which remedies and which kind of solutions. Most of the information I get is from my mentor, who is what we would call as an intuitive healer, but it also comes from my background, which is in biomedical engineering, neuroscience, a bit of psychology, as well as Ayurvedic medicine and Chinese medicine. By using those frameworks of understanding how the mind works, the emotion works, the biomechanics work, the bioelectric properties work, and how the organs work, I can understand better about how the healer that I'm studying with does what he does. And by observing his patterns through a more of a scientific or logical perspective, it's helping me understand and break down what he does in a simple way so that it can be communicated, such through a YouTube channel like this, or to be just understood and applicably used by the common person who doesn't have, a born DNA strand that allows you to be an intuitive healer or to be some kind of medical science professional. The goal is to create a simple and practical and effective way of changing the body, or specifically fixing damage within the body, so that we no longer have those impedances blocking the physical functionality, the electrical functionality, and the physiological functionalities that allow us to think, feel, and perform well. By fixing that damage, that's how we can live fully and be able to shape our personality into how we want it. People think that healing has to do with being healthy, but in reality, the two are pretty different. For example, if you have a biomechanical stress that's running through your liver area, say through the abuse of emotions disrupting the extracellular matrix around the organ, and then impeding various flow from the blood, through the lymph, through the water, through the nerves into that organ, then you're going to have, over time, a solidified structure that becomes inflexible and impermeable to the various fluids that are needed to generate the flow and the functionality for that organ. Now, that would be held in there by a certain amount of physical damage, or physical stress as we call it, which will cause the lack of functionality, which can lead to all sorts of diseases and mental disorders. But just because you do some health practice doesn't exactly mean that the levels of damage or the levels of tension force are going to be reduced in that particular tissue or that particular area of the body. This is where changing your diet to be more healthy, or taking on a practice such as yoga, might be good things to do, but it must be also applied in a strategy. It must be applied in the right way to the right thing at the right time. And without that strategy, that overall strategy to reduce the damage in particular areas, the application of what we would say is health practices, whether it be energy or meditation or through nutrition, or there's thousands of them out there, that they won't be optimally effective and will not be able to create those serious changes in the way your physiology functions, because there are bigger issues, very forceful issues, holding them in. The extracellular matrix, which is the main component of our body that creates the structure and determines a lot of what we call as stress, is actually made up of collagen fibers. Those collagen fibers per size are actually somewhere between 5 and 10 times stronger than steel. So you literally have to go up against something and create strategies to fix something that's 5 to 10 times harder than steel. And the reality is, in the beginning of your journey through the healing process, you can't beat something that's 5 to 10 times harder than steel with meditation or healthy eating or just simple stretching. Those kind of things are very useful, but only when articulated to a specific point of the body at a certain stage of the tissue repair process in the specific way that it is required at that specific time. And to know all that, you have to have a very good strategy. And so the healing process is that of developing a strategy, knowing how to use things like physical therapy, yoga, healthy eating, and knowing when to use them. Without a strategy, people just start applying these various healing techniques on a routine. They will do something like a massage once a week or yoga twice a week, something like that, or maybe even an eating plan or a diet. However, if what we do is not applied in a specific way and with an overall strategy, then those things, those healing practices, they would only apply to a general level for which you can only resolve easy targets. The easy targets, unfortunately, aren't the ones that are causing the main issues and the main holdbacks that you're experiencing from feeling more emotion, from recovering from maybe a heart issue or a type 2 diabetes or some other major impairment. Those are going to be from the issues that started from when you were young, from the stress pattern that you developed while you were a baby. Those issues, compounded over time, are the ones that are deepest within you and are held in by immense amount of force and stress between the damaged points of extracellular matrix or fascia within your body. You can think of it like the screen cracking on your phone. I don't know if you ever had that happen, but even if you haven't, you can imagine that if you download an app or install the perfect antivirus software or have someone who does computer hacking skills go in and professionally resolve every technical issue with the phone, at the end of the day, the screen is still cracked. The phone is still unusable. It doesn't matter how many approaches you take to fixing the programs. If the main structure is broken, then the whole device will become impaired. In the same way, people will tend to focus a lot on creating the perfect physiology through diet, through medication, through taking various herbal medicines. And this is a good thing to do. When used in a strategy, it can become immensely effective. However, when you do these things by themselves, then you're only articulating these little bits of program changes or these alterations within physiological pathways in our body. Now, for the individual cells, it might make your cells operate in a more balanced way temporarily, but cells are generally self-contained mechanisms, meaning that a cell is just a nanomachine and it operates based on its inputs and its outputs. In biomedical engineering class, when we were growing cellular tissues on grafts or matrix structuring, like stents and things like that, we would put like fluids and carbohydrates and nutrients into a device that holds this tissue graft. And based on our calculations of the nutrients and the velocity and the pressure gradients that were created, and basically the inflow and then calculating the outflow, is how well that cellular culture would proliferate and be able to regenerate over that scaffolding. The one thing that determines that flow is the extracellular matrix, and having specifically a well-defined and elastic structure for that matrix. Things don't just break because time goes on. Yes, there might be oxidation, and yes, there might be shortening telomeres that can affect the way that we develop as we move through the years. But keep in mind, the human biological system is designed to require oxidation in order to live. And the shortening of telomeres is just important for our biological time clock to ensure that, we are creating the right morphic stage at the right point in life. But creating a morphic stage is a lot different than creating heart disease, is a lot different than creating cancer. The body doesn't have anything programmed in it where it says, oops, age 42, here goes your hip. It doesn't work like that. So the whole idea of people's health declining with age, it's just a cultural norm more than it is anything in science. In science, it seems relatively impossible or extremely unlikely that you will decline in functionality with age. For me, it's like, okay, here's a machine, find what's broken, fix it, and it might not be as easy as just taking a pill and then hoping your problems go away, because admittedly, that's the ideal. But what I do know is that this process works. It takes a lot of commitment, dedication, hard work, and it's not comfortable in any way. In fact, healing most of the time, if you think about when you're sick or throwing up or have gone through a surgery, almost all of the time when your body's going through real healing, it's a process that's anything but comfortable. And that's kind of the disclaimer behind the healing process that I'm describing, is that when you go through the process, it is uncomfortable. Kind of like something in life that's just natural and a part of ourselves, such as maybe giving birth. In giving birth, I don't think any woman would say it's a comfortable process, but at the end of the day, it's rewarding and it's something that is invaluable to go through. And that's how I view healing, because healing isn't just something you go and do, it's something that transforms the way that you experience life as a human being on this planet with the precious time that you have. Some people might ask, does your method of healing apply to everybody? And yes, it does, because the model for healing is dependent on the exact way the human body was created, the exact patterns that were used, and the sacred geometry of the human body, so that the biomechanical, the chemical, and the electrical ways of understanding the body all line up and are synchronous with one another. Whereas if you have, say, a model in Chinese medicine, and you have a model in Ayurvedic medicine, and then you have a model in like Western or modern scientific medicine, then you're going to be having these arguments between them because they don't have exact ways of matching up. And so for one side, they're not going to understand the other side. But in a model that's more closely related to the construction of the human body, it now becomes applicable for Chinese medicine, it becomes applicable for Ayurvedic medicine, because the healing model is in accordance with the meridians, with the acupuncture points, with the doshas, with the chakras that are used in Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine. But it is also able to be understood, and primarily understood, in terms of biomechanics, in terms of bioelectrics and voltaics, as well as physiological principles as well. But keep in mind that even though this art of healing applies to everybody, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to just make these massive changes to whatever you want in just some short, cool moves. Healing, just like any sport or any art that's developed through time, it requires attention, it requires a little bit of intuition, and it requires a lot of experience and skill. A lot of people will want to resolve these big issues like, their cancer or their heart disease or their lack of mental clarity or something like that, which these things usually originate early on in life and become very deeply entrenched or solidified into the structure or the stress pattern of the body. Now, to get to those levels, one would have to, first of all, unlock many levels or many layers of stress before getting to those deeper levels of stress. And for some people, maybe it's hundreds of layers. For some people, maybe it's thousands, or for some people, they might even have more than 10,000 layers. With each layer being unlocked, then the stresses on the body will be reduced. And when you reduce one point of stress in the overall structure of the human mechanism, what that causes is a chain reaction of reduced stress systemically. The reason being is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction within a contained system, and the human being is a contained system. So what that means is if I reduce, say, 10 pounds of force load stress in my shoulder, well, now every single part and component of my body is going to be having reduced stress as well, depending on the exact biomechanical vectors or the direction of the stress moving through various areas of the body. So in order to find out what are those key areas of stress that I need to resolve first in order to get the body to start unlocking, that requires what I call tracing. The reason that tracing works and the way that we're able to do it is because the body is already doing it subconsciously. The goal is for you to just understand it consciously. The body right now is in your subconscious trying to heal the key points of the most easy targeted, or the low-hanging fruit, so to say, areas of your body that have recently taken on the damage but still have the potential of healing without any prerequisite other areas that need to be solved first. Then by tapping into the body's natural process for understanding where to heal first through the idea of tracing, then you can identify exactly where the damage is, which leads me to the next step, which is to identify what the damage is and the quality of the damage. Does that tissue or that area of your body, is it numb? Is it sore? Is it tingly? Is it cool feeling? Or is it completely locked up? These are all qualities that will show you which stage or which type of degeneration that tissue is in at that current moment, and which will allow you to get to the third step, which is resolution, or being able to resolve that particular issue in that particular tissue. Now, to resolve it, that's where it comes to getting the right strategy and understanding your tool set so that you can apply the right tool in the right way that will fix the damage for that specific situation. This is where it kind of becomes like a video game. It's like, here's my weapons. Let me target and let me attack this damage in a healing way so that the damage will become fixed. And you'll know if you beat that level or if you beat that challenge by seeing, well, did the muscle relax? And did you regain feeling into that area? Or does that emotion come back for you? Or do you feel less tension across your body? Feelings like this show that you've accomplished that level or regenerated that tissue. You may start feeling like your emotions are coming back, that you are able to feel like you once did when you were young, that your vitality might be increased, that your mental clarity might be increased. all of these things come from regenerating each piece of the tissue, and especially the tissues that are associated with the mind or the characteristics that shape our personality. The concept of tracing, identifying, and resolving is just an overall theme to the healing process, but the healing process in and of itself is going to be requiring to take many videos and many hours to learn exactly how the body works, the exact patterns that the body functions in, and then how to somewhat reverse engineer that so that you can fix the damage that's necessary now to undo the stress pattern that you've developed through your lifetime, and then create the changes that are necessary for you to go back to your childlike state without damage and be able to live with the personality and in the way that you want. The other necessary component that I just want to mention before we wrap up this video is that in order to heal, one needs to set aside an environment that allows for healing. For many of us, we find ourselves very busy, very occupied, and committed to many things in our life that we're responsible for. Now, in our lives, yes, we're going to be responsible for many things, but at the end of the day, you're also responsible for taking care of yourself. Because if we don't take care of what's inside of us and our mind, then it becomes increasingly difficult to take care of things that are external to us, such as our career, our finances, and our relationships. It might seem like a setback to set aside time away from all your duties and responsibilities that you've taken on. But at the same time, if we're ineffective at it, or if we don't get a sense of fulfillment, or there's no purpose behind it that we feel deep within us, then what is the point of trying to do those things? For if we're able to focus on what's inside first, and we're able to create that perfect functionality so that we have great mental clarity, our creativity is great, our energy levels are great, our vitality is great. And if every one of these minor aspects that compose the entire element of our personality and how we move through the world is improved, then everything we do, and even our experience and enjoyment through doing it, will become improved as well. To me, that's what it means to have a good life. But to be honest, I wasn't always that way. When I was in high school, I overdosed on amphetamines quite a number of times, and I never thought that I was going to have to live through it. It was never my intention. But years later, I realized that I wasn't able to accomplish the goal that I wanted at the time. But instead, I just created damage in my body, in my mind, and it led me to not have good health. And that lack of health, I didn't really think about at times. I had, I guess, youth on my side, and my organs were pretty strong. And so I did okay, and I never had a headache or anything until I went into a surgery. And when I came out of that surgery, suddenly it was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, and my body just couldn't handle any more stress. And it just, everything broke down. And I went from feeling like that I'm on top of the world and able to accomplish this, and I was winning competitions in sports, and I was at the top of my class in a number of my college classes that I had started in college. I was going from that and then going to not being able to hold a basic conversation, not being able to even carry groceries because my body felt too weak, having seizures, panic attacks, migraines on a daily basis. So being in that drastic difference, it showed me that I need to take care of my mind and my body and my health in order to enjoy my life. Before that, I never really thought about the idea of health. I never thought about the idea of taking care of myself. I thought, it's like, okay, well, if I keep going, then the body's just going to heal itself, because that's what the body does. If I fall down, I scrape my knee, well, it stops bleeding eventually and skin comes. But I've realized now, many years later, that the body, it's not that it doesn't take damage or that it can heal the damage. It's that it translocates the damage into areas that don't necessarily affect our daily performance, whether physically, emotionally, or mentally. Because the human body is so crafty and so intelligent about how it places stress and damage so that it does not affect our daily performance, it makes it so that it seems that we're not taking on damage and that it's healing itself. This, when we're young, is an advantage because we can just keep falling down and keep damaging things, and we just get back up, and maybe we just have a couple tears and we just keep running. We did that so many times, at least in the way I grew up, over 20 years, that all those things, they add up. And what I didn't realize is each piece of damage or each point of damage comes with compounding interest as well, as when there is a certain point of damage in the body, that it tends to accumulate more damage in that area, because if the area is already weak, then when some external force comes, healthy tissue is going to be able to be flexible and repair quick. But if it's already damaged, then it's already weak, and then it's going to take on more damage. So in life, the damaged areas are more likely to become more damaged, and the healthy areas are more likely to stay healthy. And this creates a certain really polar way of the stress accumulating in our body. And this is why we develop certain personalities, is because when we're young, our subconscious mind, along with the environment that we grow up in, determines the way and the specific points in which our body attributes the stress or attributes the damage to. Because our body is so intelligent, it will articulate our posture, it will articulate our emotions, it will articulate these things so that it only places stress into the places that are least used or the least necessary. But don't be like me. Don't confuse, your body's intelligence and its gift for you for the sake of not taking care of your body or not being responsible. And so, I screwed up my health, and I am still paying the consequences for that. Many people, I've seen them, and even myself a few years ago, I would say we're looking for external validation to identify with, oh, I have seizures, oh, I have multiple sclerosis, oh, I have fibromyalgia. Let me go and join this forum for people who have fibromyalgia and learn how to cope with it. Learning to cope with it is a good idea, but then at the end of the day, I ask myself, well, how many days do I want to live like this? Ideally, I would just instead go and fix the issues. And to fix the issues, I needed to come up with a solution or a strategy. Because at the time, I would go to the hospital and they would prescribe me this medication. They would pass me on to this scientist or this doctor and try to create a therapy or a treatment for me to resolve the issues. But I was still relying upon other people to care and understand my specific stress pattern, when really they aren't trained to do that. They're trained to understand categorizations of symptoms based on what we tell them, and then prescribe a treatment that is statistically significant for a large population of people. Now, that may give an advantage, and I actually, through the medical system, I would say I benefited a lot. And so I'm really, really, really thankful for all the work that my doctors did and the different things that they prescribed me. Not all of them worked, but a couple of them gave me huge advantages and were essential tools within my healing process. So it was good, but it wasn't the absolute solution. It didn't actually allow me to get my creativity back, my mental clarity back, my vitality back. Those things only came many years later when I started studying under a healer to identify and to find and resolve and fix the exact damage in my body that was causing the stress on my organs, on my electrical pathways, and various areas of my body that were affecting my mind, my personality, and the way that I was thinking. But there's a part of me that maybe it's the engineer part of me, and maybe a reason for my fascination for biomedical engineering, psychology, neuroscience, Chinese medicine, these kind of things, is that I see the body as a machine. And I believe that any machine can be fixed if you have the right tools and the right strategy. So at a certain point in my life, I decided, all right, well, maybe what I'm doing isn't working. And so I need to go out there, I need to find the right tools and find the right strategy. Through that, I was able to somewhat reverse engineer how the body works. At a certain point, I realized I had two options. One of them was either take responsibility for all the damage that I had created in my body through making bad decisions, or to die slowly. And since sitting there and rolling over and giving up for my personality wasn't really an option, I said, well, I'm still breathing, I'm still here, so why not try to resolve the issues? Now I know for a lot of people, they have many other reasons to not take the time aside, being your many responsibilities in life. But for me, it was clear that if I didn't stop then, I wouldn't last very much longer. So either it was A, solve the problem and do whatever is necessary, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's painful, even though I made so many mistakes along that journey, that at the end of the day, it would be worth it, because to do it, it's a lot of work and it's a huge commitment and you have to make sacrifices. But at the same time, it's better than the alternative. And so I just want you to think about, okay, well, what are my options? And is it worth for me to take time away from my duties and responsibilities to regenerate my body, regenerate my mind, so I can craft a new personality? And yes, it requires that mental commitment too. When, it was painful and it was difficult, but I had to face the fact that I screwed up my body. And so it was necessary to say, okay, well, my doctors did what they could. The Chinese medicine doctors did what they could. The Ayurvedic doctors did what they could. And for that, I'm really appreciative. But I need to take responsibility for my own health. And I need to take responsibility for the damage that I created. Your subconscious mind has recorded every single moment in your life. Every sound, every touch, everything you saw. It's all in your mind, and it has been recorded very well. So if you understand to just trust your mind, then you can understand that there's a very clear and logical path to being able to reverse the damage, the traumas, and all of the previous ways that your body suffered in the past, so that you can fix those issues and that you can move on to maybe just enjoying life more, or expressing yourself in the way you want to, or maybe being able to achieve some goal that you set out to do maybe a long time ago, but may have gotten lost along the way, or even overwhelmed. So I want to encourage you to just simply ask yourself if it's the right time for you to regenerate your body, to take responsibility for the damage that you've created, and put into action a strategy, an attempt, or to try something to fix yourself so that you can become the person that you idealized when you were young. So I want to give you this challenge. Go to a mirror by yourself and look into your eyes, deep within the pupils, and just ask yourself this question: do I deserve to heal? And then, based on that response, ask yourself, when is the right time to heal? Should I start healing now? Based on the responses that you get, you may want to jump into the healing process, or you may want to ask yourself, what obstacles are keeping me from jumping into that process? My advice would be to act as soon as possible, because the sooner that you can start fixing the damage is the sooner that you can heal the issues that you're currently facing. And the sooner that you can remove those inhibitions that are limiting your creativity, your inner self from being able to express yourself the way that you idealize, the way that you imagine, the way that you feel who you truly are. And the sooner that you can do that, the sooner you can start really enjoying your life again. And that is my greatest wish for you. Best of luck on your healing journey. I hope you found this video useful. If you could think of someone who might benefit from this information, then please feel free to share this video or series with them. Also, please feel free to check out the other videos in this channel, as we're producing almost a video a week with the intention of bringing you tools to help you transform your mind so that you can improve your mental and physical performance. If you would like to support our mission to provide mental wellness to the world, then please consider making a tax-deductible donation to the NutriCure Foundation, for which is a link in the description. And I look forward to helping you create a better you.